Lured by the spring weather, smoke rises slowly from the backyard barbecue grill toward the blue sky. Cherry blossom petals dance in the gentle breeze as if nature itself is blessing our gathering. It's been 3 years since we moved into this house, and our weekends in this quiet Boston suburb are always wrapped in peaceful happiness. In the yard enclosed by white picket fences, I was spreading the tablecloth with practiced hands. The table was adorned with colorful salad bowls and appetizer plates, while pale pink petals occasionally drifted down from the double-flowered cherry tree planted in the corner of the garden. "Melissa, is this sauce okay?" my husband James called out as he emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron. His kind eyes sparkled behind his black-rimmed glasses. His commitment to spending every weekend with family creates the stable happiness in this home. "Yes, it's perfect. Now we just need to wait for your parents," I replied while setting the last plate on the garden table. On the lawn, Amy was playing hide-and-seek with the neighborhood kids. Her golden braids sparkled in the spring sunshine as her laughter echoed throughout the garden. In her princess pink dress, she looked just like a spring fairy. "Mama, look!" I couldn't help but smile as Amy chased after a large butterfly. Her innocent smile was our family's greatest treasure. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, there stood William in his expensive suit and Carol in her pastel blue dress. "We've been waiting for you," I called out, and William gave a gentlemanly smile while Carol warmly embraced me. My relationship with my in-laws was something I took pride in. "Amy, Grandpa and Grandma are here." Responding to my voice, Amy waved goodbye to her friends and came running over. Her steps were light, bouncing like the spring breeze. "Grandpa, Grandma." Amy spread her arms wide and hugged her grandparents. Her gesture was as natural and lovely as a butterfly landing on a flower. William gently patted his granddaughter's head, and Carol planted a small kiss on her cheek. As the scent of barbecue mingled with the cherry blossoms, William headed to the garden to help with the grill, and Carol went to the kitchen to help with the final touches on the salad. And so began our weekend gathering. Thin clouds drifted across the sky as a gentle breeze caressed our cheeks. The savory aroma of James's grilled meat wafted through the garden as Amy ran around the table with her friends. Carol chatted with me about the garden flowers, her gentle smile reflecting her kindness as a former elementary school teacher. As the meal progressed, the conversation naturally turned to Amy's birthday present. "Actually, I've prepared something special," William said with a mysterious smile. When Carol took out a large paper bag, Amy's eyes lit up. At that moment, I sensed something different in my father-in-law's expression, but that unease soon dissolved into the family's smiles. "Amy, this is a special present from Grandma and Grandpa." Carol's voice was filled with deep affection. At her words, Amy excitedly clapped her small hands. From the paper bag emerged an adorable teddy bear with fine white and brown fur. "Wow! I've never seen such a cute teddy bear," Amy exclaimed, hugging the stuffed animal preciously. Her expression in that moment was the very picture of pure joy. "Father, Mother, thank you for such a wonderful present," I said with heartfelt gratitude. William nodded with satisfaction, saying quietly, "Seeing this child's smile is my greatest pleasure." At that time, I had no way of knowing the hidden meaning behind those words. At dusk, Cherry blossom petals fell silently in the cleaned-up garden. Amy clutched her new teddy bear preciously while excitedly recounting the day's events. The soft light characteristic of spring twilight gently enveloped our family. Everyone thought it was the perfect end to a weekend. While clearing the table, I watched my in-laws departing backs. William walked with dignity, and Carol cast a final glance at the garden flowers. The scene was the very picture of a peaceful, ideal family. What broke the midnight silence was a faint sound. At first, with my drowsy mind, I thought it was just the house settling. But the next moment, my consciousness snapped awake at the small voice coming from Amy's room. "Mama! Mama!" Next to me, James was breathing quietly in his sleep. I quickly put on my robe and headed to Amy's room. Moonlight streamed through the hallway window. When I opened Amy's door, she had an anxious expression on her princess bed. The moonlight reflecting off the pastel pink wallpaper created a dreamlike atmosphere. "What's wrong, Amy?" As I approached, Amy clutched the teddy bear from her grandparents tightly and said in a trembling voice, "Mama, I'm scared. The bear is making strange noises." I sat down beside my daughter and gently stroked her hair. "It's all right, Mama will check it for you." Taking the teddy bear, I could definitely feel something was off. When hugged, there was a faint mechanical sound from inside. It was a sound that should never come from a normal stuffed animal. "James," I went back to wake my husband. Though he rubbed his sleepy eyes, he immediately understood the situation. The next morning, after sending Amy off to school, I took the teddy bear to an upscale department store downtown. In the stuffed animals section, I approached a young female clerk. "Excuse me, I recently purchased this teddy bear." The clerk carefully examined the item, but her expression showed confusion. "I'm sorry, but we don't carry this product." "But surely this tag." Looking at the tag I pointed to, the clerk's confusion deepened. "This tag seems different. It's slightly different from our official products." Anxiety began to grow in my chest. On my way home, I decided to stop by a reputable local toy repair shop. Though it had an old sign, the skilled technician handled the situation carefully. "Let me check the inside." The white-haired technician began examining the teddy bear carefully on his workbench. His handling showed decades of experience. However, the moment he opened the seam on the back, his hands visibly trembled. "Ma'am, this is..." The technician's voice trailed off. On the workbench lay exposed a sophisticated small camera and high-performance microphone. They were clearly professional surveillance devices. "You should report this to the police immediately," the technician's voice was dead serious. "These are devices that aren't available in normal markets." Various thoughts raced through my mind. Who would do this, and for what purpose? The fact that such surveillance devices had been planted in Amy's bedroom made me feel intensely nauseous. "I'll contact the police." My voice sounded surprisingly calm, even to myself. But inside, anger and fear were swirling. My hand trembled slightly as I took out my smartphone. Within 30 minutes of reporting to the police, 2 detectives arrived. A seasoned older male detective and a young female detective. They began examining the devices inside the teddy bear with professional eyes. "This is a very sophisticated surveillance device," the older detective said. "It's a model that's difficult to obtain in the general market. Could you tell us where you got this?" As I answered that question, a terrible suspicion began growing inside me. Amy's birthday. The present from her grandparents. William's satisfied smile. And that sense of unease I felt then. It was all connected. However, I wasn't yet ready to accept that truth. When Amy came home, I smiled gently at her. "Hey Amy, let's sleep with a different stuffed animal for a while, okay?" Looking at my daughter's innocent smile, I had made up my mind. I had to protect this family, this child. No matter who the opponent might be. The police interrogation room was smaller than I had imagined. Gray walls, a square table, and hard chairs. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the window made the room's sterile atmosphere even more pronounced. The middle-aged detective began quietly while opening his notebook. Next to him sat the young female detective, keenly observing my expressions. "You received this teddy bear as a present for your daughter from your in-laws." My voice was intentionally controlled, devoid of emotion. I needed to convey the facts as objectively as possible. It was also a way to protect my own heart. "Mrs. Watson," the female detective said in a calm voice. "About this surveillance equipment, it's a very special product. It's not something available in the general market, mainly used by corporations or special agencies." Those words sent a chill down my spine. The weight of the term special agencies spoke to the gravity of the situation. "Actually, there are very few vendors who can handle this type of equipment," the middle-aged detective continued. "Currently, we're investigating the purchase route, but..." His words were interrupted by a knock on the interrogation room door. It seemed new information had arrived. The detectives temporarily left their seats, leaving me alone in the silence. Outside the window, cherry blossom petals danced in the wind. The spring scenery that had seemed so beautiful just days ago now stirred up an eerie anxiety. "Sorry to keep you waiting." The detective's expression had clearly changed when he returned. "Actually, we found the purchase records for this surveillance equipment. It was a very expensive transaction, through specialized import channels." At that moment, my cell phone rang. The display showed Carol. It was a call from my mother-in-law. "Excuse me," I hung up the phone. However, a message arrived immediately after. "Melissa, please listen. I didn't know anything. The police came to the house and asked various questions, but I really have no idea about any of this." The fluorescent lights in the interrogation room seemed painfully bright. "Mrs. Watson," the middle-aged detective began carefully choosing his words. "According to Carol's testimony, everything regarding the purchase of this teddy bear was arranged by your husband, that is, by William." Those words definitively changed something inside me. In my memory, my father-in-law's smile began to take on an ominous shadow. After leaving the police station, I headed straight to the hospital. I had received word that Carol had been urgently admitted due to excessive stress. Entering the hospital room, the former intelligent teacher's presence was gone, replaced by a frail elderly woman lying there. Her pastel blue hospital gown made her pale complexion stand out even more. "Melissa." Carol looked at me with tearful eyes. Please believe me. I really didn't. I understand. I held my mother-in-law's hand. It was ice cold. You didn't know anything about this, did you? Carol nodded quietly and began to cry. But the police suspect me. The neighbors too. Her words were interrupted by sobs. The setting sun streaming through the hospital window cast deep shadows. That evening, a chance encounter with the neighbor at the supermarket complicated the situation further. "Oh, Melissa," she hesitantly approached me. "It must be difficult with Carol's situation. But you know, she was always unusually obsessed with her grandchild." I was concerned about how she was always watching through the window. I wanted to object to those words, but at that moment, William strode confidently through the supermarket's automatic doors. Still in his expensive suit. That gentlemanly smile, as if nothing had happened. When our eyes met, his smile seemed to freeze for an instant. However, he quickly recovered and gave an elegant bow. "Melissa, how is Carol doing?" His voice carried the same gentle tone as always. But something lurking beneath it sent chills down my spine. "Father," I answered while carefully choosing my words. "She's getting some rest." I see," William nodded deeply. "I'll take responsibility for Carol. By the way, how is Amy?" Something about the way he said "Amy" filled me with instinctive fear. That night, when I returned home, James was holding his head in his study. "I'll have to take time off work," he said in a tired voice. "The police questioning is likely to be lengthy." James. Father, that father would do such a thing. His voice trembled. Why? For what purpose? I placed my hand on my husband's shoulder. Outside the window, the full moon cast an eerie light. In Amy's room, our daughter was sleeping peacefully, hugging her new stuffed animal. The next morning's front page headline read, "Surveillance Device Scandal Shakes Distinguished Investment Family." While the article avoided stating the facts directly, it suggested the darkness lurking within upper-class households. I threw the newspaper in the trash. I had to protect my daughter from this turmoil. And simultaneously, another anxiety crossed my mind. Could this be just the tip of the iceberg? Could there be a deeper, more terrifying truth hidden behind my father-in-law's actions? The phone call from the police came right after that. "We found new evidence," the detective's voice had lost its usual calm. "Could you come to the station immediately?" I took a deep breath. The door to the truth was about to open. Upon arriving at the police station, there was a different tension in the air. As I passed through reception, I could feel the police officers' gazes focused on me. Something was happening. Something big. "We've been waiting for you," the detective's voice who came to meet me carried weight. "I'll escort you to the chief's office." The chief's office, those words alone told of the seriousness of the situation. Opening the heavy wooden door, a middle-aged police chief greeted me with a solemn expression. Familiar documents were spread across his desk. "Mrs. Watson," the chief began. "First, please look at this." The screen displayed security camera footage from a luxury hotel. There was William, in his expensive suit, clearly shown making a transaction with an unknown man. The date was 1 week before the teddy bear purchase. This isn't all, a young detective spread out new materials. Communication records from the past 3 years, bank transaction histories, and the mounting evidence showed this wasn't just a momentary lapse in judgment, but a long-term, calculated act. Suspect William Watson is already in custody. Those words sank heavily into the air. My father-in-law in the interrogation room had lost his usual dignity. Worn down by detention center life, a frail old man sat in the defendant's seat. However, his eyes still held that strange gleam. "Melissa," he began speaking in a calm tone as soon as he saw me. "Some may condemn my actions. But this is all love." That word, love, made me shiver. "Amy is my masterpiece." William's expression became almost rapturous. "Every single move she makes, everything is precious, valuable data." "Data," my voice trembled. "Yes, data," he continued as if in a fever. "I'm recording everything about her growth. Her smiles, tears, stumbles, successes. I'm creating perfect observation records. Isn't this true love?" At that moment, I understood. The person before me wasn't my gentlemanly father-in-law. He was an obsessed observer, possessed by the need to control. "Are there other devices?" I asked fearfully. William gave a cunning smile. "Well, who knows? Why don't you try to find them?" The next moment, his expression suddenly changed, and he slammed the table hard. "I have every right. That child's entire life belongs to me." The interrogation room door opened, and several police officers rushed in. Among the chaos, I heard my father-in-law's shouts. "I'm not wrong. This is true love." That afternoon, there was a meeting with a psychiatrist. After a long examination, the doctor gave his diagnosis with a grave expression. He shows severe controlling personality disorder combined with delusional attachment disorder. Particularly notable is his abnormal fixation on observation. The diagnosis report contained even more shocking facts. There were signs that my father-in-law had repeated similar actions in the past. Carol, hospitalized, deteriorated further after learning this truth. I should have noticed. She gripped my hand while crying. That night, I spent a long time watching Amy's sleeping face for the first time in a while. Watching my daughter's innocent breathing, the events of the past played through my mind like a film reel. Suddenly, Amy woke up. "Mama, when is Grandpa coming?" That innocent question squeezed my heart. How should I explain? How could I protect this pure heart? The next day, there was another report from the police. They said they found massive amounts of data and records at my father-in-law's home. Videos, audio recordings, and diary-like records documenting Amy's life. They were evidence of an obsessive fixation that bordered on madness. Unfortunately, this might be just the tip of the iceberg. The detective carefully chose his words. There might be other victims. Those words made me feel nauseous. My father-in-law's madness might have gone far beyond what we could imagine. James sat silently at his computer, immersed in work. Perhaps this was his way of averting his eyes from reality. "Melissa," he suddenly turned and said. "Let's move." Sell this house and start in a new place. That suggestion represented the possibility of a new beginning. But at the same time, it spoke to the depth of the wounds we now carried. As I left the police station, the evening sky was stained deep red. As if all the events until now were burning away. On the way home, I pulled over to the shoulder and rested my forehead on the steering wheel. The tears wouldn't stop. Anger, sadness, and above all, anxiety about what lay ahead came crashing over me. However, remembering Amy's smile, I took a deep breath. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. The day of the verdict. The 3-month battle in court was finally coming to an end. Entering the courtroom, I saw William. Gone was his dignified appearance. A thin old man worn down by life in detention sat in the defendant's seat. Yet his eyes still held that strange gleam. Defendant William Watson, the judge's voice echoed through the courtroom. 10 years imprisonment, with 3 years to be served in a psychiatric treatment facility. As the sentence was pronounced, I held James's hand tightly. I could feel my husband's fingers trembling slightly. The defendant's actions inflicted deep psychological trauma on the young victim and her family. Particularly, the fact that this was a premeditated crime exploiting a relationship of trust must be severely condemned. As the judge continued speaking, Williams suddenly stood up and shouted, "I'm not wrong. This is love. Pure love." Watching his back as he was led away, I was filled with complex emotions. Hatred, anger, or pity. I couldn't find the answer. As we left the courthouse, the media swarmed us. Avoiding camera flashes, we hurried to our car. From that day, our new life began. We left Boston and moved to a small town in the suburbs. A white house with a green roof. In the yard, we installed a swing set that Amy chose. In this new environment, we slowly began to heal. Mama, look. Amy chases butterflies in the garden. Her smile is as bright as ever. I've been saved many times by children's resilient ability to recover. We now meet Carol once a month. She's gradually recovering from her psychological damage and now runs a small gardening class. It seems the flowers are healing her wounded heart. Melissa, Carol said quietly one day while tending to the garden flower bed. I didn't notice for a long time either. Williams, true nature. Her voice held a mixture of regret and resignation. But the former self-blame was no longer there. Perhaps this was her own form of acceptance. Amy quickly adjusted to her new school. We explained the situation to her teacher and asked for special consideration. "I'll keep a watchful eye on your child," the teacher promised with a kind smile that gave me peace of mind. We all continue with psychological counseling as a family. Overcoming trauma takes time, the counselor says. But your family's bond is very strong. James started working at a new company. I want to live a different life than my father, his determination was firm. He always spends weekends with family, cherishing his time with Amy. However, complete healing is still a long way off. Amy still wakes from frightening dreams at night. I myself am still struck by sudden anxiety. Still, we're moving forward one step at a time. Letters occasionally arrive from William at the psychiatric hospital. However, we return them unopened. Let's put an end to this. This was our family decision. One weekend afternoon, Amy, hugging her new stuffed animal, asked curiously, "Mama, why was Grandpa always watching me?" Her innocent question momentarily left me speechless. But I quickly answered gently, that was Grandpa's wrong way of showing love. Amy thought for a moment, then smiled brightly. But Mama and Papa's way of loving is right, isn't it? Those words brought tears to my eyes. In my daughter's innocent smile, I felt I saw hope for our future. Time flows, seasons change, and scars gradually fade. However, this experience remains etched in us as an indelible lesson. What is love? What is trust? What are family bonds? As we search for answers to these questions, we weave our new days together, one step at a time.